How was Moi era if you compare it to these other regimes? What was life like?
There were allegations of assassinations, and this tainted the image of the country considerably. For instance, the suspicious deaths of Pinto, J.M. Kariuki, Tom Boyer, Ouko, and many others. Again, one hopes that we shall never have Kenyans dying under suspicious circumstances at all. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was able to keep the country together. He promoted the unity of the country using his slogan of Harambee. Harambee! He laid a firm foundation for a nation that we must continue to thank him. Daniel Arap Moi, with all the weaknesses he had with respect to the rule of law and human rights, expanded education considerably in the country.
And apart from one or two temporary setbacks,
during colonial days, we had very few schools in Kenya, very few high schools in Kenya. High schools during the colonial days were Maseno, Government School Kakamega, Alliance High School, Mango, Yala, and probably Kisi. There were very few schools, high schools. There were very few primary schools. For instance, during my days, during the colonial days, I had to walk about 8 miles to go to the nearest, about 6 miles to go to the nearest primary school, a Protestant primary school. During my father's time, he used to tell me that he walked about 10 miles, no more than 10 miles, to go to the nearest primary school to get education. But Daniel Arap Moi was able to open up educational facilities in the country so that primary schools were almost everywhere, secondary schools were almost everywhere, universities, schools of technologies and so on were established throughout the country. And to some extent he was able also to keep the country together during the time when there was turmoil in this part of Africa. Our President Mwai Kibaki perhaps comes out as having done very well, and one would easily compare him with Wilson, President Wilson of the United States. He maintained rule of the law of the country, the independence of judges and magistrates. The practice of law was superb. He did a very good job. It's unfortunate that he had to stay in power only for 2 terms. If he had stayed in power for 4 terms, it's quite possible that he could have transformed Kenya into a strong economy, and which would be competing with some of the economies in the Eastern Asian countries. Our present president has put up a very good fight against corruption in the country. That he has done, he earns very good marks. No president put up a fight against corruption the way he did. I recall during the time of his own father, the only corruption case we had was against Shemechero, Zakaria Shemechero. And I appeared in that criminal case for Shemechero as a junior. I was led by a senior counsel, or whom we used to refer to as a Queen's Counsel, Wilkinson. That is the only case I can remember during that time. During the period of Daniel Arap Moi, there were absolutely no cases, criminal cases against portfolio holders in government, in courts at all. But Uhuru has been able to bring quite a number of cases in courts. The only quarrel we have with these cases that have been brought to court is the method and procedure of gathering of evidence that has been done. But he has made an effort to fight corruption in the country.
Dr. Khaminwa blames the Jubilee government for failing to respect the rule of law, even as he expresses a strong opinion on political issues now trending in the country.
I have a court order in respect of Miguna. 4 experienced judges have delivered orders in favor of Miguna. Miguna may not be a perfect person, may have his own weaknesses as a human being. But that does not mean that the state should not obey orders that have been issued by courts, by experienced, strong judges in the country. Miguna remains languishing in slums of Canada. He has never been permitted to come to the country at all. This is extremely unfortunate. I wish the president could revisit the whole thing and make sure the court orders are obeyed. Orders of the courts, and particularly superior courts, must be obeyed. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta obeyed court orders. There's no any occasion you can criticize him for that at all. He obeyed court orders. President Daniel Arap Moi, with all his weaknesses in violations of human rights, he obeyed court orders. He respected court orders. There was no time when he did not do so at all. President Mwai Kibaki obeyed court orders. His regime obeyed court orders. It is only this regime we have that does not obey court orders at all. Mass evictions in Kariobangi. I went to court at unusual hours, unusual time on a Sunday. The Chief Justice, Maraga, was kind enough to nominate a judge to hear me. The judge gave me orders. We went ahead to stop the evictions, the mass evictions, but the mass evictions proceeded. Now, one thing that is forgotten, mass evictions amount to crimes against humanity. It's extremely unfortunate for the country, which claims to be democratic, which claims to uphold the rule of law, which now has got a position in the international community, it has got a representative even on the Security Council. Court orders must be obeyed.
What do you make of the back and forth conflicts between the judiciary and the executive and the issue of the 41 judges?
Would it surprise you that we are now fixing cases in April, May, June next year? The judges cannot give us dates during this year, in November or in October at all, because there are no sufficient judges. Now, question arises, who is suffering? The ordinary people are suffering. Our judicial system is breaking down. The Chief Justice Maraga has done a very good job. He has stood for independence of the judiciary. And it's unfortunate that these judges have not been sworn at all. These judges should have been sworn so that we have the machinery of the wheels of justice functioning and operating smoothly. And people have got access to courts.
CJ Maraga gave an advice to the president to dissolve the parliament for failing to enact the 2/3 gender rule. What do you think of that, and should the parliament be dissolved?
Let the parliament be dissolved. We stand for the rule of law. I have taken the trouble to read what the ruling, the advisory opinion by the Chief Justice. It's a good advisory opinion. The MPs should go home. We should not compromise over that at all. The MPs should go home. This is a democratic country. A democratic institution has delivered a decision. That decision should be upheld. And the Constitution is, the decision of Chief Justice Maraga is as clear as daylight. There is no room, there's no way. Let Parliament be dissolved.
What do you think of BBI? Is it the right time to change the Constitution or not?
That's a very good question you've asked me. I don't support the BBI. BBI want to establish a kind of community where certain communities will continue to be in power, and this must be rejected. We do not need the BBI. BBI is not a good thing for the country at all. After some time, it will create new problems for the country which we shall not be able to handle. Let us use the present Constitution. Let the President use the present Constitution to ensure that we have proper succession, to ensure that the presidency does protect. In some way, people from other communities are given the opportunity to look after the country. And that can be done very well under the present Constitution. The people who are tribal in Kenya are people who have received very good education, and majority of them live actually in urban areas. And they only go to these rural areas in order to get votes, in order to get positions, to come back and continue living in these posh areas of the country. And when they go to those areas, they normally go with a tribal card. Let us be concerned about food production in the country, about the unemployment in the country, about the sick people in the country. Address these issues. When it comes to campaigning, there will be time when it will be announced that now there's going to be campaigning, and they can then start campaigning at that particular time. But not at this particular time at all. Let us all concentrate on making sure that we strengthen the economy. We get people to have some money in their pockets. They are able to do to live a decent life. They have their children are going to school. They have shelter, and they are enjoying life. Their quality of life is good.
So much history and lessons from the past through the eyes of Dr. John Khaminwa, and this is his advice to the young generation.
Whatever position you have in society, try to use that opportunity effectively to make a contribution, not only for yourself, but for the entire country and for humanity. That is what leadership is all about.
For an octogenarian lawyer with over half a century of experience of law at diverse levels in different countries and regimes, calling it a quit has never crossed his mind. Well, they say good lawyers know the law and great lawyers know the judge. And for Dr. John Khaminwa and the corridors of justice, only death can do them part. Safi Godana Mama, Switch TV, Karen, Nairobi.